Hey yo, good morning. My hat is not a MAGA hat, by the way. It's red, but it's not MAGA. It's OHIO, OSU Buckeyes hat. Anyway, there's a lot of talk about generational wealth, and I am one of those guys talking about generational wealth. It's very important, but we got to really understand what that means. Bob Marley, when asked, "Are you a wealthy man?" He asked the interviewer, "What do you mean wealthy? How you define wealthy?" In his, his tone of questioning, what's reality. What is wealth? What is generational wealth? I believe that. Knowledge is wealth. Knowledge is wealth. And there are people right now who do not have the knowledge. They have not been taught what's real. They do not have a true understanding. And these individuals will go about making babies and not be able to pass on a wealth of knowledge. And therefore, that's where we have to first establish what we mean when we mention wealth. We need to ensure that our children have access to education, not just the education that they get in elementary, high school, but education that goes even beyond. So within our household, we have to encourage our team members to read. We have to provide them with the proper literature. The best way, I believe, to do this is to take your kids to the library, get back to the foundation of them touching paper, feeling paper, smelling paper, and pulling that knowledge that someone spent hours and hours and years putting on paper. This will teach our children so much about history. It will teach them about present. It will teach them about the future. It will teach them about finances. What does that mean? How do you obtain it? How do you sustain it? And how do you pass it on? So, again, generational wealth first begins with passing on knowledge. Okay. Now, when we think about generational wealth in today's term, take for instance a couple, a married couple, buy their first house. They take great care of the house. They have some children. They continue to take great care of the house. When they pass on, they pass this house on to their children, who in turn take great care of this house, pass it on to their children. That's passing on in its own sense, wealth in the terms of a house. We expand it a little bit to taking on business, to owning a business. Someone is able to own a business, teaches his son, his daughters how to take care of the business. This person passes on, leaves the business to his children. The children take care of the business, grow the business, pass it on to their children, and so on and so forth. That's passing on tangible generational wealth. It's not passing on dollars and cents in terms of handing cash, writing a check. It's passing on the infrastructure that keeps on giving and giving. So this is what we have found has been happening for centuries in the white community. It has only been for less than 100 years that blacks have had those things to be able to pass on. A house, a business. Now, if you take a look at the house that the average black man owned some 30 years ago, passing that house on in good condition was challenging. Getting a loan in order to continue to improve on the infrastructure of that house has been extremely difficult. The disparity in terms of wage earned has been a fraction of what the white man has earned, and therefore the ability to reinvest from your own income into that infrastructure, the house, has been a challenge, and therefore passing on the wealth of a house to your children in good standing, the wealth of a house in good standing to your children has been a challenge. So that has caused a disparity in that regard. Think about businesses that are owned by blacks. There have not been the kinds of business that keeps giving and giving, if you will, in that they're usually the smaller businesses, and they just they have not been able to sustain themselves really well. So again, passing that on, in terms of passing wealth on, has been a challenge. We've not had the opportunity to compete. Now, however, we are realizing that there is more and more opportunity to compete. Yet, we need some help. The black community needs some help. We need help in terms of education, and the federal government will need to help in this regard. We need help in terms of giving us loans that are forgivable, business loans that are forgivable if used as it is designed. So I call on our government to provide some land. There's a lot of land sitting out in places that are just sitting there. Provide some land and give to black men, black women who have been through a tertiary education system, who have been through a vocation system, who have been through the military system, that have developed that sense of discipline, that when you hand something to them, you know that they're going to make good with it. So give some of the land that's available across this country. Extend small business loan. Again, make these loans forgivable as long as these loans are being used for its intended purposes. Will the government need to micromanage these loans to which these individuals to whom the loans have been given? You bet, and we recognize, identify, and we welcome that. But I think this will cause us to be able to pass on the generational wealth that our white counterparts have been able to pass on for centuries. So this is my call to action from the government, is to help black men and women to pass on the wealth of knowledge, the tangible wealth of a house in great standing, tangible wealth of a business in great standing. This is our call to action.